Okay, we're doing arithmetic and geometric series, and we're doing recursive and explicit formulas for them today, or equations actually, but we're going to use the formula to find the equation. We did this last year. If you guys had me last year, you did this. This is a checkpoint question, so that means that our school district has put it on our quiz for 5.3 as well as our chapter test for chapter 5 because our curriculum decides that you should know it really well by now. However, I think this is a hard concept and you guys might not remember it from last year. So we're going to review it. At the end, I'm going to have you write yourself like a little note card type of thing, and you're allowed to use that on your quiz and on your test. Okay, so this is just to start this out and kind of get our bearings around what we need to do for this. This is really having us do recursive formulas first. Explicit is easier than recursive, though. These really are all just numbers you plug into a regular formula. So where it says start and then it says a of 1, so it says that right here. A of 1 is just the first term. So Kellen, what's our first term on that first one?
5.
5, so you're going to fill that in with a 5. And then it says for description in words, you guys are going to pretty much describe it this way for every single one of these. So it says it starts at 5 and add 4 repeatedly. So you can see you add 4 each time. You should be writing this down in your notebook. And Kellen, can you write your add 4 on here? Now it says next / now. So what that means is to get the next term, you're going to take the term you have now and add 4 to it, right? That's what we found out. You take the term you have, you add 4 to it. So now this is the general thing that you guys are going to do for an equation. So you're going to say a of 1 was 5. Remember this last year how you had to say what the first term was to start it off? Then you say a of n is the previous term, which would be a of n minus 1, right? So your next term is the previous term plus 4. And make sure that's a little subscript, that a of n minus 1. All that says is your next term is the previous term plus 4. That's all that means. A of n means next term, and this means previous. So it's really not that complicated, and we're going to do several of these. So on the next one, we have to figure out what we're doing. They gave us our starting term, right? So Kellen, how much do we add or subtract to get from 40 to 34? You might need your calculator. Okay, so Kellen said we subtract 6 every time. So we're going to subtract 6. So now we're going to say start at, and what did we start at, Kellen?
40.
40. And are we adding or subtracting repeatedly?
Subtracting.
And, whoops. Okay, and then we're going to write add and add -6 repeatedly. So we say next, your next term equals your now term, and then what'd you write, Kellen? -6. So what's a of 1?
Oh, 40.
40. Yep. A of n is a of n minus 1, and then what did you say we do every time, Kellen? -6. Yep. Okay, so now let's do the next one. We have to figure out what we're doing every single time. So how do we get from 7 to 4, Kellen?
Subtract
3? Subtract 3 every time?
Mm-hmm.
What's our starting term?
7.
7. So now we're going to say start at 7 and add -3, right? Or you could just say subtract 3. We just want to make sure you see that -3 repeatedly. Okay, so it says the next term equals your now term. So your next term is your term that you have now minus 3. What's your a of one term, Kellen? 7. It's actually a sub 1. So a sub n, which is your next term, equals your previous term, which is a sub n minus 1, minus 3. You subtract 3 every time, right? Okay, so these were the ones that we would call arithmetic. So we'd say these are arithmetic series. Arithmetic series just means that you're adding or subtracting every time. So arithmetic's kind of easier because you are just adding or subtracting every time, right? The next set we're going to do are called geometric. Geometric means that we're going to be multiplying by something every time, or it could be dividing, but we really try to keep it in terms of multiplication because we can multiply by a fraction instead of dividing by a number. Okay, so these ones are geometric this time. So we have to figure out what we're multiplying by. So we go from 1 to 3 to 9. What do you think we multiply by? 1 times what is 3?
Oh. 3.
Yeah, 3. So this is times 3. This is times 3, right? So we're going to say, what's our starting value? 1. We say we start at 1 and we multiply by 3 repeatedly. That repeatedly is really key, you guys. A series just means you're doing the same every single time. So we're going to say to get the next term, we take 3 times the term that we're on now. Whoops. So we take 3 times the term that we're on now. So instead of addition now, we're going to do multiplication. So what's your first term, Kellen? 1. Then we're going to say to get the next term, we're going to take the previous term and we're going to multiply it by 3. Remember, you guys, formal notation, if we had 3x, we'd write 3x, so 3 times x. We would, 3x times 3 is the same thing, but that looks weird, right? We know that's weird. We don't write it that way. This is the same thing. You put a sub n minus 1 last. Okay, so what's your starting term on the next one, Kellen? 8. Okay, so these multiplication ones, you guys, get really tricky. We're going to have to say we multiply by something to go this direction, right? So to figure out what we multiply by, see how these are decimals? This is kind of tricky. To figure out what we multiply by, we can just divide to go this way. So in your calculator, type in 6.4 divided by 8. So 6.4 divided by 8. What'd you get, Kellen?
0.8.
0.8. So our multiplier is 0.8. So I'm actually going to write this part. I'm going to say next equals 0.8 times your term you're on now. Because we just figured that out. So 0.8. 0.8. And you can test that by doing 8 times 0.8, and you do get 6.4. 6.4 times 0.8, and you do get 5.12. So we're going to say we start at 8 and multiply by 0.8 or 8/10 repeatedly. So we take our first term, make sure you write a of 1. So a of 1 equals 8. A sub n, which is our next term, equals the previous term. Whoops, I wrote that in the wrong order. A sub n minus 1, which is our previous term. And what do we multiply by, Kellen? 0.8. Okay, so if you take that same logic from the last one, remember how we divided to go the other direction? If you were to do 7 divided by 14, what does that reduce to as a fraction, Kellen? 1/2. So they're multiplying this by 1/2 every single time. And you can see that because it's the bottom is increasing by 2 every single time, right? So 7 divided by 14, 7 divided by 2, you're just multiplying by 1/2 every single time. Okay, so our starting value is 14. And we say start at 14 and multiply by 1/2 repeatedly. So our next term is 1/2 times our term we have now, right? So we say a sub 1 equals 14. A sub n equals your previous term, which is a sub n minus 1, times 1/2. Okay, so this is the part, you guys, you can make a note card of this if you would like to. So recursive formula is what we've been doing for both of these. So for arithmetic sequences, for the recursive formula, we said our a sub 1 is our first term. Kellen, do you want to go grab a colored pencil? Okay, I want you guys to box the things or circle the things you have to fill in. So on this, we filled in whatever our first term was, right? So circle first term on there. This is right here, Kellen. There we go. So then we said a sub n is our previous term plus d, which is our common difference. So just whatever we're adding or subtracting every time, right? So here you need to circle the plus d. That's what you have to fill in. Those are the only two things you guys have to fill in on these equations. Every single other thing stays the same every single time you do one of these equations. Okay? So let's do the geometric now. So for geometric, we still do the same thing. A sub 1 equals your first term. Circle first term. You have to fill that in, right? Then we said a sub n, so our next term is our a sub n minus 1, so our previous term, and then we times it by whatever our common ratio is. So the last one was whatever number we add. This one is whatever number we multiply by. Please circle that r. That r is the number you multiply by every time. So if you need to write a cheat sheet that says that your r is what you multiply by every time, go for it. So this is your next equals your now plus your common difference. So whatever you're adding or subtracting every time. This is your next equals your now times, whoops, I wrote that backwards. Your now times your common ratio. So it's usually going to be a fraction actually, or a decimal, you guys. It's usually not a whole number. Okay, the other one that we did not do together is the explicit formula. So you're going to say your a sub 1, or your a sub n, sorry, equals your a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. A sub 1 is your first term, so please circle a sub 1. You have to fill that in with whatever your first term is. N minus 1, you leave the same. We do have to fill in our common difference, so please circle d. Those are the only two things you have to fill in. The reason this is kind of nice is because your recursive formula, you have to have your previous term to find the next term. This one, you plug in whatever term you need and just use it. So for geometric series, you take your a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to your n minus 1. R is your common ratio, so please fill in R, or circle R. It's the same as the one below that. Then a sub 1 is your first term. You're going to know your first term too, so circle that because you also have to fill that in. So this is your cheat sheet. This is what you guys are going to go off of. Please write this on a note card. I know this is kind of tricky, and it's just kind of hard to remember in general. We haven't done it, you guys, since I think it was January or February of last year. So it's been about a year since you guys have done this. So if this is a little tough at first, that's fine. Write your note card. This is really going to tell you guys exactly what to do. Okay, this is your guys' first one from your homework. First of all, you have to look at this and see if it looks like it's adding or if it's multiplying. You guys can see it looks like it's adding. So what's it adding every time, Kellen? 4. So we're going to write plus 4. Is plus 4 your first term, or is it your common difference? Common difference. So we're going to say D equals 4. What's your first term? 12. So we're going to start our equation. Remember that your explicit formula for arithmetic, this is arithmetic because we're adding every time, is a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. So a sub n we don't have to fill in, right, Kellen? We just write a sub n equals. What's your a sub 1? It's 12, right? Your first term is 12, right? And you knew what it was. You just were looking at the wrong thing. So 12 plus n minus 1. We don't fill that in. What's your common difference, Kellen?
Plus 4.
Plus 4. But we're going to write times, actually. And our d is 4. This is the one that's kind of weird, okay? And I actually am going to switch the order of this, you guys. It looks better to have this 4 right here, right? So that's your equation. I know it's weird. Okay? These, you really just kind of have to follow that equation, and it just is what it is, okay? So, hold on one second. Okay, so here was your answer. If you guys still need to write that down, please pause it so that you can write it down, because I'm going to erase it. Okay, so this one, you guys, you can see you're not adding something, you are multiplying by something, right? This gets a little tricky. Remember how we said we can go the opposite way and do division instead? So I'm going to teach you how to type that in your calculator. So when you type this in, type in a parenthesis, then do -1 divided by 6. It's going to show up, I think it does have those fraction marks. Then you're going to do divided by -1 divided by 4. You are going to get a decimal. And that's okay, because I'm going to show you how to type that in. So we have -1/6 divided by -1/4. So you should get approximately 0.6666667, and it goes on forever, right? So on your guys' calculator, you have like your button that says second. you have a button next to that that says DRG. Underneath that button, it says PRB, and then you have one that says F, and it has an arrow this way, an arrow this way, and D. That right there, you guys, means fraction decimal. So in your calculator, type in second, and then click that button that says PRB, because then you're getting your fraction decimal button. So it's going to have F, D. This is actually a really good button to have. So type in second, PRB, enter. And you should get 2/3 is what it says, right? This is tricky. I know the calculator part is the hardest part. So we divided and we got what we have to multiply by. So we multiply by 2/3 every single time. I know that's tough, you guys. That's okay. So our common ratio is 2/3. What's our a sub 1, Kellen? Yeah, -1/4. Okay, so the equation we're using is the explicit formula for geometric sequence. So we're doing a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. Okay, so we just need to fill in our pieces now. Remember, you should have a sub 1 circled and you should have r circled. Well, we already found a sub n, we already found and we already found r. R is just what we multiply by every single time, right? So we're going to do a sub n equals, what was a sub 1, Kellen? -1/4. What was r?
2/3.
Make sure you put it in parentheses. And then we put n minus 1. I know that's kind of tricky. It's really not as hard as it seems right now. You guys can write yourselves a note card of this if you would like to. Okay, so on your note card on one side, please write down fraction, or let's write down decimal to fraction. And then write down your steps on the other side so that you guys know how to do that. Whatever you guys didn't get done in this video is homework. The hardest thing is the explicit formula. Kellen, I'm going to let you cross a couple more of these out actually. So you guys, you can cross out problems 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 29, and 30. Okay, so I'm going to know if you guys watch this video if you crossed out 9, 10, 11, 12, 29, and 30. You guys have to do the other ones for homework. This is on your quiz. This is on your test. Make sure you're doing this.